Introduction: The Accidental Philosophical King. Welcome to our journey into the mind of Marcus Aurelius. We spoke of who he was, emperor of Rome, yet also a man wrestling with the timeless questions of existence. We also touched on the fact that his writings, meditations, were never intended for public consumption, but were instead a private journal of self-reflection and guidance. Now, let's delve deeper into the unique circumstances that shaped this extraordinary individual. To fully appreciate the meditations, we need to understand how Marcus Aurelius, seemingly by accident, found himself not only on the throne of the Roman Empire, but also embracing a philosophical path. Marcus, born Marcus Annius Verus in AD 121, wasn't destined for imperial power. His early life pointed towards a respected senatorial career, perhaps a position in the imperial administration. The bronze equestrian statue that now stands atop the Capitoline Hill, the image of the philosopher-king that we associate with him, was a future far beyond the horizon of expectation. His family, though distinguished, didn't inherently place him on a path to the throne. It was his grandfather who assumed the responsibility of raising him after his father's early death. Marcus does reference his father in the Meditations, but it seems his knowledge comes more from stories than genuine recollections, as the text reads, "from my own memories and his reputation." Of his childhood, the Historia Augusta, a late and often unreliable source, paints a picture of a serious boy who also enjoyed the typical pursuits of upper-class youth: boxing, wrestling, running, falconry. We get glimpses of Marcus's schooling in Book 1 of the Meditations, supplemented by what we know of upper-class education at the time. He was first taught the basics of reading and writing, likely by slaves. Then came private tutors, exposing him to literature, undoubtedly including Virgil's Aeneid. But literature was merely a step toward the real prize: rhetoric. Rhetoric was the key to political success in the empire, just as it had been during the Republic. He engaged in exercises and declamations, practicing arguments and offering advice to historical figures. Should Caesar cross the Rubicon? Should Alexander turn back at the Indus? Why or why not? This training wasn't confined to Latin. It was done in Greek as well. Indeed, the Roman upper class was essentially bilingual. As Hayes notes, Marcus's spoken and written Greek would have been as fluent as the French of a 19th century Russian aristocrat or the Chinese of a Heian Japanese courtier. He would have read Homer and Euripides alongside Virgil, studied Demosthenes as intensely as Cicero. The intellectual elite were Greek, and Greek was overwhelmingly the language of philosophy. While figures like Lucretius, Cicero, and Seneca had successfully created a philosophical literature in Latin, the great thinkers Plato, Aristotle, Zeno, Chrysippus, Epicurus all wrote in Greek. A serious pursuit of philosophy demanded familiarity with their language and terminology. It's therefore natural that Marcus composed his meditations in Greek. In 137, a twist of fate altered the course of Marcus's life. Emperor Hadrian, childless and facing his own mortality, chose Antoninus as his successor, but on one condition. Antoninus would adopt both Marcus and Lucius Verus, solidifying the line of succession. This twist is the moment where destiny shifted. Marcus took on the family name of his adopted father, becoming Marcus Aurelius Antoninus. Hadrian's death the following year left Marcus first in line for the throne.
His education and that of the younger Verus then became even more critical. For Greek rhetoric, he had Herodotus Atticus, a man whose life was ample fodder for soap operas. For Latin oratory, Marcus Cornelius Fronto, who regretted seeing Marcus's passion for rhetoric wane as he delved deeper into philosophy. Fronto's letters, which have survived, provide a glimpse into the close relationship between student and teacher. The first book of the Meditations acknowledges philosophers from whom Marcus learned, formally and informally. He likely studied with many others. He also learned from observing the world around him. Legal and political training came through observing public figures like Junius Rusticus. But it was his adopted father, Antoninus Pius, who had the greatest influence. Marcus observed Antoninus receiving embassies, trying cases, dictating letters, essentially learning the art of governance. His position as heir was also being shaped. He served as consul and married Antoninus's daughter Faustina, to whom he pays tribute in the Meditations. Edward Gibbon famously described Antoninus's reign as furnishing very few materials for history, which is indeed little more than the register of the crimes, follies, and misfortunes of mankind. But the period between 145 and 161 does reveal two poles that would govern Marcus's life: the court and philosophy. It's unclear if Marcus experienced a singular philosophical conversion, but by the mid-140s, philosophy became increasingly central to his life. Then, on August 31, 1601, Antoninus died, leaving Marcus as sole successor. He swiftly appointed Lucius Verus as co-regent, perhaps fulfilling Hadrian's original intention. Verus's reputation has been dimmed by comparison to Marcus, though Marcus's own reminiscences in the Meditations paint a more nuanced picture. Nevertheless, Marcus became the senior emperor in reality, if not in title. So, what kind of ruler did this philosopher-king become? Perhaps not as different from his predecessors as one might expect. The emperor, though theoretically all-powerful, faced practical limitations. Much of his time was occupied by resolving administrative issues, receiving embassies, hearing legal appeals, and addressing petitions. News traveled slowly, imperial edicts took time to implement, and enforcement depended on provincial governors, whose diligence was subject to various influences. Legislation reveals Marcus's interest in freeing slaves and protecting orphans, possibly stemming from his philosophical convictions and personal experiences. However, legislation also reveals a personality through attention to detail and linguistic precision. Both traits resonate with the author of Meditations and a student of Fronto who emphasized le mot juste. One of Marcus's priorities was maintaining good relations with the Senate, creating an appearance of consensus and cooperation. This cultivation of the upper classes followed in the footsteps of Antoninus and Trajan, solidifying his reputation as a benevolent statesman. His policies regarding the small sect of Christians mirrored his predecessors. They were viewed with contempt by intellectuals and suspicion by ordinary citizens. Their atheism seen as a threat to the social order and the well-being of the state. Christians were illegal, but empire-wide persecution was not yet a reality. However, Marcus faced more pressing concerns than this troublesome cult. Soon after his rise, relations with Parthia worsened. In 162, Parthian forces occupied Armenia and threatened Syria. Rome had no choice but to respond. The younger emperor, Verus, was sent east. Neither he nor Marcus had significant military experience, leaving the war's conduct to professionals. Despite initial setbacks, the Romans prevailed, forcing the Parthians to seek peace.
But triumph was short-lived. Within a year, the empire was gripped by a devastating plague, likely brought back by Verus's troops. The death toll was high, delaying response to another threat, growing instability along the northern border. Barbarian tribes, pressured from farther north, sought land within the empire's borders. Rome alternated between resistance and accommodation, ultimately failing to create a policy for the empire's survival. In 168, Marcus and Verus marched north to confront them. Much of the remainder of Marcus's reign was spent in intermittent warfare, first in the Marcomannic Wars and then in a second campaign. Verus died suddenly in 169, leaving the burden on Marcus alone. This conflict was different from campaigns against Parthia. It involved negotiations with unreliable chieftains and small-scale engagements. The column erected in Rome to celebrate the close of the Marcomannic Wars shows a grim picture. As Marcus wrote, "Spiders are proud of catching flies, men of catching hares, fish in a net, boars, bears, Sarmatians." The severed hand or foot mentioned in Meditations may have been personal experience. In 175, with the Romans gaining ground, news arrived that General Avidius Cassius had revolted and declared himself emperor. Civil war was narrowly averted by Cassius's assassination. Marcus was compelled to travel east to reassert authority, a journey that led to the death of his wife Faustina. Now in his 50s, in declining health, and with only one surviving son, Commodus, Marcus made arrangements for the succession. Commodus quickly rose to prominence, essentially becoming co-emperor. But the gains made during the Marcomannic Wars were fleeting, and in 178, Marcus and Commodus marched north again. 2 years later, Marcus died at age 58. The first emperor since Vespasian to pass on the throne to his son. Unfortunately, Commodus failed to fulfill the promise Marcus saw in him. He was remembered as a dissolute tyrant, whose flaws were magnified by his contrast with his father. His assassination ushered in a period of power struggles that would plague the empire for the next century. The composition of the Meditations is generally placed in the 170s, during Marcus's final decade. This was a dark and stressful time for him. Faced with constant warfare, the revolt of Cassius, and the deaths of Verus, Faustina, and others, it's natural that Marcus would seek solace in philosophy. However, understanding what he sought from his philosophical studies requires orientation. We must become familiar with Stoicism, the system underlying the work, and with the role of philosophy in ancient life. Today, philosophy is largely an academic pursuit, far removed from the everyday concerns of most people. But for Marcus and his contemporaries, philosophy was not merely a subject for writing or debate. It was a design for living, a set of principles to guide one's life. Ancient religion, with its emphasis on ritual over doctrine, offered little in the way of moral and ethical guidance. That was the role of philosophy. And in the next segment, we will investigate Stoicism as a practice of living. Debts and Lessons, a Foundation in Virtue. Let us begin not with abstract principles, but with the concrete realities of a life well lived, as Marcus himself did. He starts his Meditations by acknowledging the debts he owes, the lessons he learned, and the people who shaped him. It is Book 1, his testament to a life steeped in gratitude and reverence. This isn't just a sentimental exercise. It's a deliberate grounding in virtue, a laying of the foundation upon which all else will be built. Marcus doesn't merely list these individuals. He distills from them specific qualities, behaviors, and principles that he seeks to emulate. This act of acknowledgement isn't just about paying respect. It's about internalizing the virtues he admires.
Consider how he begins. My grandfather Verus. Character and self-control. No elaborate praise, no flowery language. Simply, succinctly, the core virtues that defined the man. This simplicity speaks volumes. It suggests that true virtue is not about outward display, but about inward strength. He continues, my father, from my own memories and his reputation, integrity and manliness. His father died young, so Marcus draws both on personal memories and the accounts of others. Even through the veil of loss and time, the virtues of integrity and manliness shine brightly. This reminds us that even imperfect memories can be potent sources of inspiration. Then, my mother, her reverence for the divine, her generosity, her inability not only to do wrong, but even to conceive of doing it. and the simple way she lived, not in the least like the rich. Here he emphasizes her moral compass and her rejection of ostentation. She offers a potent image of quiet virtue, a contrast to the excesses and temptations of power that would surround Marcus for much of his life. As we continue, it's striking how many of these early influences are concerned with matters of self-discipline and intellectual integrity. He speaks of his first teacher, not to support this side or that in chariot racing, this fighter or that in the games, to put up with discomfort and not make demands, to do my own work, mind my own business, and have no time for slanderers. These seemingly minor points reveal a deep commitment to objectivity, self-reliance, and avoiding trivial distractions. It's a reminder that virtue begins in the everyday, in the small choices we make. With his teacher Diognetus, Marcus learns not to waste time on nonsense, not to be taken in by conjurers and hoodoo artists with their talk about incantations and exorcism and all the rest of it. He stresses the importance of reason and discernment, rejecting superstition and empty rituals. He cherishes to hear unwelcome truths. Then his teacher Rusticus, the recognition that I needed to train and discipline my character, not to be sidetracked by my interest in rhetoric, not to write treatises on abstract questions, or deliver moralizing little sermons, or compose imaginary descriptions of the simple life or the man who lives only for others, to steer clear of oratory, poetry, and belles letters, and most crucially, to read attentively, not to be satisfied with just getting the gist of it, to avoid the temptations of superficiality and easy eloquence. Rusticus reminds us of the necessity for focused study and intellectual rigor. Further on, Apollonius, independence and unvarying reliability, and to pay attention to nothing, no matter how fleetingly, except the logos, and to be the same in all circumstances, intense pain, the loss of a child, chronic illness, and to see clearly from his example that a man can show both strength and flexibility. The Stoic ideal of unwavering adherence to reason even in the face of profound suffering. And Sextus, kindness, an example of fatherly authority in the home, what it means to live as nature requires, gravity without airs, to show intuitive sympathy for friends, tolerance to amateurs and sloppy thinkers. His ability to get along with everyone, sharing his company was the highest of compliments, and the opportunity an honor for those around him. To investigate and analyze, with understanding and logic, the principles we ought to live by. Not to display anger or other emotions. To be free of passion and yet full of love. To praise without bombast, to display expertise without pretension. He acknowledges the literary critic Alexander, not to be constantly correcting people, and in particular, not to jump on them whenever they make an error of usage or a grammatical mistake or mispronounce something, but just answer their question or add another example or debate the issue itself, not their phrasing, or make some other contribution to the discussion and insert the right expression unobtrusively. He speaks of his brother Severus, to love my family, truth and justice. It was through him that I encountered Thracia, Helvidius, Cato, Dion, and Brutus, and conceived of a society of equal laws, governed by equality of status and of speech, and of rulers who respect the liberty of their subjects above all else, and from him as well to be steady and consistent in valuing philosophy, and to help others and be eager to share, not to be a pessimist and never to doubt your friend's affection for you. A vision of a just and equitable society fueled by genuine affection and loyalty. Then comes Maximus, described with remarkable detail. Maximus, self-control and resistance to distractions, optimism in adversity, especially illness, a personality in balance, dignity and grace together, doing your job without whining, other people's certainty that what he said was what he thought, and what he did was done without malice, never taken aback or apprehensive, neither rash nor hesitant or bewildered or at a loss, not obsequious but not aggressive or paranoid either, generosity, charity, honesty, the sense he gave of staying on the path rather than being kept on it, that no one could ever have felt patronized by him or in a position to patronize him, a sense of humor, an ideal of inner balance combining strength, grace, and a genuine concern for others. Finally, his adopted father, Antoninus Pius. Marcus dedicates a lengthy entry to him, highlighting a wide range of virtues. Compassion, unwavering adherence to decisions once he'd reached them, indifference to superficial honors, hard work, persistence, listening to anyone who could contribute to the public good, his dogged determination to treat people as they deserved, a sense of when to push and when to back off. He pays tribute to the gods and ends with, "The gods did all they could, through their gifts, their help, their inspiration, to ensure that I could live as nature demands. And if I failed, it's no one's fault but mine." Take note of the detail. A single man's life can be shaped by countless influences, large and small. We too can learn from the examples of others, both living and dead. What are the virtues you admire most? Who embodies those virtues for you? Take time to reflect on the debts you owe, the lessons you've learned, and the people who have helped you become who you are. This is not just a matter of historical interest. It is an invitation to practice gratitude, to cultivate self-awareness, and to build a life founded on virtue. Just as Marcus Aurelius began his philosophical journey by acknowledging his debts, so too can we begin ours. What is a life lived but a collection of debts paid forward? The rational universe, logos, nature, and our place within. Let us now turn our gaze outward, beyond the individual, to the grand theater of existence itself. Marcus Aurelius, steeped in Stoic philosophy, believed in a universe governed by reason, by an all-pervading principle the Stoics called logos.
Think of logos as the blueprint of reality, the divine architect's design. It's not just a set of rules, but a living, breathing intelligence that permeates everything. In his writings, Marcus uses the term logos often interchangeably with nature, providence, or even God. He posits that all events, without exception, are predetermined by logos and follow an unbreakable chain of cause and effect. This is a deterministic worldview, and perhaps a tough pill to swallow for us moderns, obsessed as we are with freedom and self-determination. But the Stoics weren't fatalists, sitting idly by and accepting whatever life throws at them. They believed in aligning oneself with logos, understanding its order, and living in accordance with it. As Hayes writes in the introduction, humans are like a dog tied to a moving wagon. If the dog refuses to run along with the wagon, he will be dragged by it. Yet the choice remains his, to run or be dragged. Marcus reminds himself in Book 2, "Whatever the nature of the whole does, and whatever serves to maintain it, is good for every part of nature." The Stoic's task is not to fight against this current, but to understand and embrace it. The world is maintained by change, in the elements and in the things they compose. That should be enough for you. Treat it as an axiom. This leads us to the concept of pneuma. Logos, this universal reason, exists in a physical form, a vital force that animates all things. The Stoics called it pneuma, often imagined as fire and air, a vital breath. In Marcus's view, this force connects us all. We are all sparks of the same divine fire, interconnected and interdependent. When Marcus refers, as he does on a number of occasions, to cause and material, he means the two elements of these compounds, inert substance and animating pneuma, which are united so long as the object itself exists. When the object perishes, the pneuma that animated it is reabsorbed into the logos as a whole. This concept of a rationally ordered and interconnected universe is central to understanding Marcus's philosophy. He urges us to see ourselves not as isolated individuals, but as integral parts of a larger whole. Consider these lines from Book 4. That you are part of nature, and no one can prevent you from speaking and acting in harmony with it always. How then should we navigate this rational universe? How do we find our place within it? Marcus encourages us to look for order and rationality in every aspect of the world, not just in the grand sweep of cosmic events, but also in the smallest details of daily life. As we read in Book 3, we should remember that even nature's inadvertence has its own charm, its own attractiveness. The way loaves of bread split open on top in the oven. The ridges are just byproducts of the baking, and yet pleasing somehow. They rouse our appetite without our knowing why. Or how ripe figs begin to burst, and olives on the point of falling. The shadow of decay gives them a peculiar beauty. Stalks of wheat bending under their own weight. The furrowed brow of the lion. Flecks of foam on the boar's mouth, and other things. This sensitivity to the world around us, this ability to see beauty and purpose even in the seemingly random, is a key aspect of living in accordance with Logos. What is the alternative? In Book 6, Marcus presents us with a dichotomy. A. Mixture, interaction, dispersal, or B. Unity, order, design. He asks himself, suppose A. Why would I want to live in disorder and confusion? Why would I care about anything except the eventual dust to dust? And why would I feel any anxiety? Dispersal is certain, whatever I do. Or suppose B. Reverence, serenity, faith in the power responsible.
His choice is clear. He chooses the path of order, design, and reverence for the Logos that governs all. He sees his duty, therefore, as aligning himself with Logos and to the larger community. Marcus calls on us to embrace our roles as citizens of the world. We should strive to act unselfishly, justly, and for the common good. As Hayes states, Marcus himself more than once compares the world ruled by Logos to a city in which all human beings are citizens, with all the duties inherent in citizenship. Marcus understood that living in accordance with nature required understanding and accepting one's place within the grand scheme. This involved recognizing our interconnectedness with all things and striving to act in a way that benefits the whole. Consider this thought from Book 10, that I have a relationship with other similar parts. And with that in mind, I have no right, as a part, to complain about what is assigned me by the whole. Because what benefits the whole can't harm the parts, and the whole does nothing that doesn't benefit it. That's a trait shared by all natures, but the nature of the world is defined by a second characteristic as well. No outside force can compel it to cause itself harm. It is easy to see how this view resonated with Marcus as an emperor. As a ruler, he had a profound sense of responsibility for the welfare of his people and the stability of the empire. In this respect, his philosophical beliefs mirrored his sense of duty as a leader. However, this perspective is equally relevant to our lives, regardless of our station. By understanding our place within the larger community of humankind, we can strive to act in a way that promotes harmony, justice, and the common good. The concept of Logos is not just an abstract philosophical principle, but a guide for how we should live our lives. This vision of a rational and interconnected universe, the emperor's own belief in a unified humanity, can help guide us through life's challenges. The three disciplines: perception, action, and will. Welcome back. We've journeyed through Marcus Aurelius's foundational beliefs, his gratitude for the virtues instilled in him, and his understanding of the rational universe. Now we turn to the core of his practical philosophy, the three disciplines of perception, action, and will. These disciplines aren't mere abstract concepts. They are the daily tools Marcus used to navigate the complexities of life, both as a man and as an emperor. Imagine the Roman Empire, a vast network of people, power, and events. Picture Marcus at its center, bombarded by impressions, decisions, and challenges. How does one maintain balance, integrity, and effectiveness amidst such chaos? The answer for Marcus lay in mastering these three disciplines. Let's begin with perception. The world throws impressions at us constantly. Everything is just an impression, as Monimus the Cynic said. But it's not the impression itself that matters, but our perception of it. According to the Stoic theory of cognition, at every instant, objects and events in the world around us bombard us with impressions. As they do so, they produce a fantasia, a mental impression. From this, the mind generates a hypolepsis, a perception. Marcus urges us to maintain absolute objectivity of thought, to see things dispassionately for what they truly are, stripped of our judgments and biases. Remember, it is not objects and events, but the interpretations we place on them that are the problem. Consider this: your house burns down. That's the fantasia, the bare fact. But your perception, your interpretation, might be, this is a tragedy, my life is ruined. Marcus challenges us to question that interpretation. Is it the only possible one? Can you choose to see it differently? Perhaps as a chance to rebuild, to simplify, to learn resilience.
If you seek tranquility, do less, he advises, and more accurately, do what's essential, what the logos of a social being requires, and in the requisite way. Which brings a double satisfaction: to do less better. Because most of what we say and do is not essential. If you can eliminate it, you'll have more time and more tranquility. Ask yourself at every moment, is this necessary? Proper understanding of this discipline requires a brief introduction to the Stoic theory of cognition. The logos infuses and is wielded by our hegemonikon, literally that which guides, which is the intellective part of our consciousness. One of its primary functions is to process and assess the data we receive from our senses. Next, we have the discipline of action. This concerns our relationship with other people. Marcus, echoing the Stoics, believed humans are inherently social beings, born to work together like feet, hands, and eyes. Our actions should be guided by reason and directed towards the common good. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. This isn't cynicism, it's realism. Knowing that these challenges are inevitable allows us to prepare, to respond with kindness, understanding, and above all, justice. Justice, for Marcus, means treating others as they deserve, recognizing their role in the cosmic order. It doesn't necessarily imply equality, but rather a fair and appropriate response to each individual and situation. This discipline also emphasizes active cooperation with the world, with fate, and above all, with other human beings. Human beings for each other, he writes, born to work together. This underscores the importance of contributing to the collective good, acting with integrity, and fulfilling our duties as citizens of the world. Finally, we arrive at the discipline of will. This governs our attitude towards things not within our control, those things that are done to us. This is about acceptance, resilience, and understanding our place within the larger order. Think of it this way. You control your own actions and are responsible for them. If you act wrongly, you harm yourself. But external events, the actions of others, even pain and suffering, these cannot truly harm you unless you choose to see them as harmful. This doesn't mean denying reality. It means recognizing that our interpretation of reality is where our power lies. When faced with adversity, Marcus encourages us to remember that everything that happens is either endurable or not. If endurable, then endure it. If unendurable, then its end will mean your end as well. Choose not to be harmed, he urges, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been. This art of acquiescence, as Epictetus called it, is crucial. By accepting what we cannot change, we free ourselves to focus on what we can, our own thoughts, actions, and character. Death, in particular, is a natural process, inevitable, and therefore not to be feared. These three disciplines, perception, action, and will, are interwoven and interdependent. Clear perception informs just action, and both contribute to a resilient will. They are the foundation of a virtuous life, a life lived in harmony with nature, and a life of inner peace. In the coming sections, we will explore how Marcus applied these disciplines to specific challenges, from managing his own mind to fulfilling his duties as emperor and facing the inevitability of death. Mastering the mind, the inner citadel of tranquility. Welcome. In our journey through Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, we now arrive at a pivotal point, mastering the mind. After all, the external world, as we've explored, is largely beyond our direct control. But our thoughts, our perceptions, our judgments, these reside within us. They form the very core of our being and, therefore, are the key to tranquility. Marcus understood this profoundly. He knew that true freedom and peace weren't found in the absence of external turmoil, but in the cultivation of an inner fortress, an inner citadel of tranquility, impervious to the storms of life. He writes, "Nowhere you can go is more peaceful, more free of interruptions than your own soul, especially if you have other things to rely on. An instant's recollection, and there it is, complete tranquility. Imagine that for a moment, a sanctuary within you, always accessible, a refuge from the chaos. But how do we build this citadel? The first, and perhaps most challenging, step is recognizing the power of perception. Stoicism teaches us that it's not events themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them. Epictetus, a philosopher who deeply influenced Marcus, expressed it this way: "Men are disturbed not by things, but by their opinions about things." Marcus echoes this, saying, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." Think about a recent challenge you faced. Was it the situation itself that caused you distress, or was it your interpretation of that situation, the story you told yourself about it? Perhaps you lost a job. The Stoic perspective would encourage you to see it not as a personal failure, but as an opportunity for growth, a chance to pursue a different path. Or perhaps someone betrayed your trust. Instead of dwelling on the pain, you could focus on understanding their motivations, learning from the experience, and fortifying your own character. This isn't about suppressing emotions. It's about understanding them. It's about stepping back from our immediate reactions and examining the thoughts that fuel them. Are these thoughts rational? Are they helpful? Are they aligned with our values? If not, we have the power to revise them. Marcus advocates for constant self-awareness, a continuous interrogation of our own minds. What am I doing with my soul, he asks. Interrogate yourself to find out what inhabits your so-called mind and what kind of soul you have now. This requires a deep commitment to honesty, a willingness to confront our own flaws and biases. He urges us to wipe the slate clean, to shrug it all off and wipe it clean, every annoyance and distraction, and reach utter stillness. Furthermore, mastering the mind involves directing our focus inward, away from the distractions of the external world. Marcus cautions against wasting time on nonsense, being sidetracked, or allowing our mind to be a slave, to be jerked about by selfish impulses. He understands that our attention is a precious resource, and we must guard it jealously. This isn't about isolating ourselves from the world, but about creating space for reflection and self-cultivation. It's about discerning what truly matters and prioritizing it. He writes, "Concentrate every minute, like a Roman, like a man, on doing what's in front of you with precise and genuine seriousness, tenderly, willingly, with justice, and on freeing yourself from all other distractions. Finally, the inner citadel is built through the acceptance of what we cannot control." Marcus repeatedly reminds himself of the transient nature of existence, the inevitability of change, and the ultimate insignificance of external events. He writes, "How fast things pass by and are gone, those that are now and those to come. Existence flows past us like a river. Nothing is stable, not even what's right here."
By acknowledging the impermanence of all things, we can lessen our attachment to them, reducing our vulnerability to disappointment and suffering. This is not a passive resignation, but an active embrace of reality. It's about aligning ourselves with the natural order of the universe, accepting that everything happens for a reason, even if that reason is beyond our comprehension. This inner citadel, built brick by brick with rational thought, conscious choice, and unwavering acceptance, becomes our sanctuary. It is the place where we find peace, where we find strength, where we find ourselves, regardless of the external circumstances. As Marcus so eloquently reminds us, "The mind without passions is a fortress. No place is more secure. Once we take refuge there, we are safe forever. Not to see this is ignorance. To see it and not seek safety means misery. Let us, then, diligently build our inner citadel and find true and lasting peace within." On duty and the common good, living as a citizen of the world. We've spent some time exploring the inner landscape, the inner citadel as Marcus calls it. But the Meditations isn't just about individual well-being, it's deeply concerned with our role in the wider world. Marcus reminds us that we are, above all, social creatures. Human beings exist for one another. Consider this: you wake up in the morning, preparing to face the day. Marcus urges us to consider the people we will encounter. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, "The people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they can't tell good from evil." This might sound cynical, even misanthropic, but it's not about despising others. It's about understanding their imperfections, their human fallibility. It's about recognizing that their actions stem from a lack of clarity, a lack of understanding of what truly matters. This understanding allows us to respond with compassion and reason, not with anger or judgment.
But I have seen the beauty of good and the ugliness of evil, and have recognized that the wrongdoer has a nature related to my own, not of the same blood or birth, but the same mind, and possessing a share of the divine. And so none of them can hurt me. No one can implicate me in ugliness, nor can I feel angry at my relative or hate him. The key phrase here, possessing a share of the divine. Marcus believes that every human being, regardless of their flaws, has a spark of reason, a connection to the universal logos. This shared nature creates a bond, a sense of kinship. We were born to work together. We were born to work together like feet, hands, and eyes, like the two rows of teeth, upper and lower. To obstruct each other is unnatural. To feel anger at someone, to turn your back on him, these are obstructions. This isn't just a nice sentiment, it's a fundamental principle of Stoic ethics. Our duty is to contribute to the well-being of the whole, to act in accordance with reason and justice, and to treat others with understanding and compassion. We are citizens of the world, and our actions should reflect that citizenship. Marcus goes further, imagining a cosmic perspective. If thought is something we share, then so is reason, what makes us reasoning beings. If so, then the reason that tells us what to do and what not to do is also shared. And if so, we share a common law, and thus are fellow citizens, and fellow citizens of something. And in that case, our state must be the world. This idea of a world state, governed by reason and law, is central to Stoic thought. It transcends national boundaries, cultural differences, and personal prejudices. It calls us to a higher allegiance, to a sense of responsibility for all humanity. It's a radical idea, even today.
How does this play out in everyday life? Marcus offers practical advice. Two kinds of readiness are constantly needed. One, to do only what the logos of authority and law directs with the good of human beings in mind. Two, to reconsider your position when someone can set you straight or convert you to his. But your conversion should always rest on a conviction that it's right or benefits others, nothing else. Not because it's more appealing or more popular. We must strive to act justly and unselfishly, always with the good of the community in mind. But we must also be open to correction, willing to learn from others, and guided by reason, not by personal gain or public opinion. It's a constant balancing act. Importantly, Marcus recognizes the challenges of living in a society filled with imperfect people. He doesn't shy away from the realities of injustice, deceit, and malice. He acknowledges that dealing with others can be frustrating, even infuriating. But the Stoic response is not to withdraw from the world, but to engage with it thoughtfully and virtuously. He reminds himself, "To the standbys above, add this one, always to define whatever it is we perceive, to trace its outline so we can see what it really is, its substance, stripped bare as a whole, unmodified. By understanding the true nature of things, we can avoid being swayed by emotions, distorted perceptions, or the opinions of others. We can act with clarity, purpose, and a deep sense of responsibility. The path to a virtuous and fulfilling life is not a solitary one. It is a journey undertaken in community, guided by reason, and fueled by a deep commitment to the common good. As Marcus says, we must never regard something as doing you good if it makes you betray a trust, or lose your sense of shame, or makes you show hatred, suspicion, ill will, or hypocrisy, or a desire for things best done behind closed doors. The world is our city. Humanity is our family.
and virtue is our guiding principle. Live accordingly, he urges, and you will find peace, purpose, and a true sense of belonging. The transient nature of existence, mortality and acceptance. Let's turn now to a theme that permeates meditations, a shadow that gives its wisdom depth and urgency. The transient nature of existence, our mortality, and the acceptance of both. Marcus Aurelius wasn't obsessed with death in a morbid way. Instead, he saw it as an integral part of the natural order, a necessary transition in the grand scheme of things. He understood that clinging to life, fearing its end, only leads to anxiety and prevents us from truly living. He reminds himself with stark simplicity, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. It's a potent reminder to focus on what truly matters in this very moment, to live each day as if it were our last. Remember how long you've been putting this off, he chides himself. How many extensions the gods gave you, and you didn't use them. The passage of time is relentless, and each moment wasted is a moment lost forever. The ephemeral nature of all things is another recurrent theme. He writes, the speed with which all of them vanish, the objects in the world, and the memory of them in time. Everything, from the grandest empires to the smallest details of our lives, is subject to decay and oblivion.
Consider this powerful imagery. The body and its parts are a river, the soul a dream and mist. Life is warfare and a journey far from home. Lasting reputation is oblivion. He doesn't paint this picture to depress us, but to liberate us. If everything is fleeting, why cling so tightly to things that ultimately cannot satisfy? He urges a shift in perspective, to recognize the interconnectedness of all things. You have functioned as a part of something. You will vanish into what produced you, or be restored, rather, to the logos from which all things spring by being changed. Even grief, he suggests, can be reframed by recognizing our mortality. He shares something that brought him solace. Alas, and will you, Servius, not restrain your grief and recall that you were born a mortal? It's a stark reminder, perhaps, but it cuts through the illusion of permanence and allows for a deeper acceptance of life's inevitable losses. Marcus doesn't shy away from contemplating the physical reality of death. He reminds himself to despise your flesh, a mess of blood, pieces of bone, a woven tangle of nerves, veins, arteries. This isn't about self-loathing, but about seeing the body for what it is, a temporary vessel that will eventually return to its constituent parts. The question then becomes, what truly endures? For Marcus, it is virtue, reason, and the unwavering commitment to living in accordance with nature. These are the things that transcend the fleeting nature of existence. He offers a powerful exercise in perspective. The age of Vespasian, for example, people doing the exact same things, marrying, raising children, getting sick, dying, waging war, and that life they led is nowhere to be found. Or the age of Trajan, the exact same things, and that life too gone. By contemplating the lives of those who came before us, we gain a sense of perspective and a detachment from the anxieties of the present. This acceptance extends beyond death to include all forms of change and adversity. He reminds himself that every event is the right one,
Look closely and you'll see not just the right one overall, but right, as if someone had weighed it out with scales. This is a radical form of acceptance, trusting that even the most challenging circumstances serve a purpose in the grand scheme of things. It's a willingness to see the inherent order and rationality of the universe, even when it seems chaotic and unjust. He also recognizes the futility of clinging to earthly ambitions. He writes, "People who are excited by posthumous fame forget that the people who remember them will soon die too." He cautions against seeking external validation and encourages us to focus instead on living a virtuous life in the present moment. He suggests, strip away the legend that encrusts them. We need to peel back the layers of social conditioning and cultural narratives to see things for what they truly are, to avoid being misled by pride and superficiality. Marcus repeatedly reminds himself to stop drifting, to sprint for the finish, to be your own savior while you can. The urgency in his voice is palpable. He recognizes the limited time we have and the importance of making the most of it. The ultimate goal, then, is not to fear death, but to embrace life, with all its joys and sorrows, its triumphs and setbacks. It is to live each moment fully and consciously, in accordance with reason and virtue. He asks to despise your flesh, a mess of blood, pieces of bone, a woven tangle of nerves, veins, arteries. Consider what the spirit is, air, and never the same air, but vomited out and gulped in again every instant. Marcus is reminding himself to focus beyond the physical and recognize the true source of meaning. Through this contemplation of mortality and transience, Marcus Aurelius doesn't lead us to despair, but to a profound sense of liberation. By accepting the inevitable, by focusing on what truly matters, we can find peace, purpose, and a deeper appreciation for the precious gift of life.
Coping with pain, injustice, and the imperfect world. The world is as it is, not as we wish it to be. This simple truth, so often resisted, lies at the heart of coping with pain, injustice, and the imperfections that surround us. Marcus Aurelius, facing the challenges of leadership, war, and personal loss, grappled with this reality daily. He didn't seek to escape the harshness of the world, but to understand it and find a way to navigate it with wisdom and virtue. One of the first steps, as Marcus so often reminds himself, is to accept that difficult people and unjust situations are unavoidable. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they can't tell good from evil. This isn't a cynical outlook, but a realistic one. By anticipating these challenges, we can prepare ourselves to respond with equanimity rather than being thrown off balance by them. But mere acceptance isn't enough. Marcus urges us to go deeper, to understand the why behind these imperfections. They are like this because they can't tell good from evil. This understanding allows us to move from resentment to compassion. It reminds us that these individuals are also part of humanity, flawed and imperfect like ourselves. The wrongdoer has a nature related to my own, not of the same blood or birth, but the same mind, and possessing a share of the divine. This connection, however tenuous it may seem at times, is crucial. And then there's the matter of our own reactions. And so none of them can hurt me. No one can implicate me in ugliness. This is a powerful assertion of inner control. While we cannot always control the actions of others, we can always control our response to them.
We can choose not to be angered, not to be corrupted, not to be drawn into their negativity. The ugliness lies not in their actions, but in our reaction to them. This is the essence of the discipline of will. Of course, pain and injustice aren't always the result of human actions. Sometimes they stem from the seemingly random events of nature or the inevitable course of life. Here, too, acceptance is paramount. It was for the best, so nature had no choice but to do it. This might seem fatalistic, but it's rooted in the Stoic belief that the universe is governed by a rational and benevolent logos. Even events that appear negative, even tragic, serve a purpose within the grand design. This doesn't mean we should passively accept suffering. Rather, we should strive to understand its place in the larger scheme of things. That every event is the right one. Look closely, and you'll see. Not just the right one overall, but right, as if someone had weighed it out with scales. This requires a conscious effort to reframe our perspective, to see difficulties not as setbacks, but as opportunities for growth and resilience. What about physical pain? Marcus acknowledges its reality, but emphasizes that its power is limited. Unendurable pain brings its own end with it. Chronic pain is always endurable. He advocates for a mental separation from the body, allowing the mind to remain serene as even as the body suffers. This isn't about denying pain, but about refusing to let it control our thoughts and emotions. The key, ultimately, is to focus on what is within our control: our thoughts, our actions, our will. Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been. This is a radical statement of self-empowerment. It suggests that our perceptions are the ultimate arbiters of our experience. By choosing to see difficulties as challenges, injustices as opportunities for compassion, and pain as a temporary discomfort, we can navigate the imperfect world with resilience and grace.
There is a delicate balance here. It's about recognizing the inherent order in the chaos, the inherent goodness in the face of suffering. The things we want in life are empty, stale, and trivial. Dogs snarling at each other, quarreling children, laughing and then bursting into tears a moment later. Trust, shame, justice, truth, gone from the earth and only found in heaven. Why are you still here? This isn't nihilism, but a call to action, to find meaning not in fleeting pleasures or external validation, but in living a life of virtue, in contributing to the common good, in accepting what is, and making the best of it. It is worth bearing in mind that Marcus, like any of us, would not have always lived up to his ideals. He was constantly reminding himself of them, constantly working to attain them. And that is perhaps the most poignant lesson we can draw from meditations. The true self, integrity, reason, and the divine spark. Let us turn our attention now to the very core of Marcus Aurelius's philosophy, the nature of the true self. What constitutes our essence? What is it that we must cultivate and protect above all else? The answer, according to Marcus, lies in the intertwined principles of integrity, reason, and the recognition of a divine spark within. These elements, when harmonized, form the bedrock of a virtuous and fulfilling life. Integrity, for Marcus, is not merely about adhering to a set of external rules. It's about an unwavering commitment to one's own inner compass, to acting in accordance with one's deepest convictions, regardless of external pressures. As he reminds himself, just that you do the right thing, the rest doesn't matter. It is a call to authenticity, a rejection of hypocrisy and pretense.
It is, ultimately, a courageous act of self-reliance. But integrity alone is not enough. It must be guided by reason. Reason, for the Stoics, is the faculty that allows us to understand the natural order of the universe, to discern truth from falsehood, and to make wise choices. Marcus urges us to concentrate every minute like a Roman, like a man, on doing what's in front of you with precise and genuine seriousness, tenderly, willingly, with justice, and on freeing yourself from all other distractions. This requires constant vigilance, a relentless questioning of our perceptions, and a dedication to living in accordance with the logos, the rational principle that governs all things. It demands a clarity of vision, a commitment to stripping away the layers of illusion and misinterpretation that cloud our minds. As he writes, "Keep this constantly in mind, that all sorts of people have died, all professions, all nationalities. To pass through this brief life as nature demands, to give it up without complaint." And what of this divine spark? Marcus frequently speaks of a connection between the human soul and a greater cosmic intelligence, a divine power that permeates all of existence. This is not necessarily a belief in a personal God in the traditional sense. Rather, it is an acknowledgement of a shared rationality, a common source of being that unites all things. This awareness of our connection to something larger than ourselves, something inherently good and benevolent, can provide us with a sense of purpose, meaning, and resilience in the face of adversity. He urges himself to live with the gods, and to do that is to show them that your soul accepts what it is given and does what the Spirit requires, the Spirit God gave each of us to lead and guide us, a fragment of himself, which is our mind, our logos. This doesn't imply passivity, however. Marcus's notion of the divine spark is not one of blind faith, but a call to active participation in the cosmic order. It means aligning our will with the will of nature, striving to contribute to the common good, and living in accordance with reason and virtue. We are, in essence, miniature reflections of the universe itself, endowed with the capacity for reason and virtue. To neglect these gifts, to allow ourselves to be consumed by selfish desires and irrational fears, is to betray our true nature. He writes, "Keep in mind how fast things pass by and are gone, those that are now and those to come. Existence flows past us like a river. The what is in constant flux, the why has 1,000 variations. Nothing is stable, not even what's right here." Thus, the path to living a life of integrity and meaning lies in recognizing our true selves, our essential connection to the Logos, and striving to cultivate the virtues that allow us to fulfill our potential as rational and civic beings. The world can throw countless challenges at us, but it is how we choose to use our intellect to react that matters most. He asks, look into their minds, at what the wise do and what they don't. By understanding the distinction between good and bad and using the powers we have to promote good, we ensure that we have a life well lived. Marcus reminds himself and us that the work is ongoing. It is not a destination to be reached, but a practice to be embraced, day after day, moment after moment. Yet, in this process of striving, in this constant effort to align ourselves with the Logos, we find not only virtue, but also a profound sense of peace, joy, and fulfillment. The practice of philosophy, a daily exercise in virtue. We've journeyed with Marcus thus far, exploring the principles that guided his life. But philosophy, as Marcus understood it, wasn't a passive acceptance of doctrine. It was an active, daily practice, a constant striving for virtue. It was a workout for the soul. Think of it like this. You can read all about physical fitness, understand the science of exercise, but unless you actually do the exercise, you won't get stronger. Similarly, understanding Stoic principles is only the first step. The real work lies in applying them to your daily life, in transforming your thoughts and actions. Marcus didn't write for publication, but for himself. His meditations are a collection of reminders, exhortations, and self-corrections. They are the record of a man constantly striving to live in accordance with reason and virtue. As he wrote, "Concentrate every minute like a Roman, like a man, on doing what's in front of you with precise and genuine seriousness, tenderly, willingly, with justice, and on freeing yourself from all other distractions." This is the essence of the philosophical life, a commitment to living each moment with intention, focusing on what is within our control and accepting what is not. It's a process of continual self-improvement, a daily exercise in virtue. So, how does one practically do this? Let's look at some key exercises inspired by Marcus's writings. 1. The morning inventory. Begin your day by anticipating the challenges ahead. As Marcus notes, when you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, "The people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they can't tell good from evil." This isn't meant to breed cynicism, but to prepare you. By acknowledging the potential for negativity, you can inoculate yourself against its impact. You can remind yourself that these behaviors are rooted in ignorance, not malice, and choose to respond with understanding and compassion.
2. The discipline of perception. Throughout the day, cultivate objectivity. See things as they are, without adding your own emotional baggage. Remember the Stoic concept of fantasia, the initial impression. Separate the impression from your perception, your interpretation. Your house burns down. That is a fantasia. The perception is whether or not you see this as a terrible tragedy. Ask yourself, is this truly good or bad, or is it simply a fact? An event in the natural order of things. As Marcus says, it is not objects and events, but the interpretations we place on them that are the problem. 3. The discipline of action. In your interactions with others, strive for justice and the common good. Remember that we are all interconnected, citizens of the same cosmic city. Ask yourself, how can I contribute to the well-being of those around me? Am I acting with fairness and integrity? As Marcus reminds us, human beings, for Marcus as for the Stoics generally, are social animals. All human beings possess not only a share of the logos, but also the ability to use it. As human beings, we are part of nature, and our duty is to accommodate ourselves to its demands and requirements. To do this, we must make proper use of the logos we have been allotted and perform as best we can the functions assigned us in the master plan of the larger cosmic logos of which it is a part. Even the smallest act of kindness can ripple outwards, creating a positive impact on the world. The discipline of will. When faced with adversity, practice acceptance and resilience. Remember that things outside our control cannot truly harm us. What matters is our response. Can we accept what has happened and choose to move forward with virtue and equanimity? As Marcus writes, "Things have no hold on the soul. They have no access to it, cannot move or direct it. It is moved and directed by itself alone. It takes the things before it and interprets them as it sees fit." This isn't about suppressing emotions, but about managing them. Acknowledge your feelings, but don't let them dictate your actions. The evening reflection. At the end of the day, take time to reflect on your actions. As Marcus suggests, ask yourself these questions. How have I behaved to the gods, to my parents, to my siblings, to my wife, to my children, to my teachers, to my nurses, to my friends, to my relatives, to my slaves? Have they all had from me nothing wrong and unworthy either word or deed? How many good things have I seen? How much pain and pleasure have I resisted? How many honors have I declined? How many unkind people have I been kind to? This is an opportunity to identify areas for improvement and to reaffirm your commitment to living a virtuous life. What mistakes did you make? And how can you be more like the virtuous examples in your life that Marcus praised in Book 1? The importance of consistency. The key to making philosophy a daily exercise is consistency. These aren't one-time events, but habits to be cultivated. Treat them like a muscle, regularly exercising them to grow stronger. Marcus understood this. He didn't write the Meditations as a finished work, but as a continuous process of self-reflection and improvement. Not to feel exasperated or defeated or despondent because your days aren't packed with wise and moral actions, but to get back up when you fail, to celebrate behaving like a human, however imperfectly, and fully embrace the pursuit that you've embarked on. The path to virtue is a lifelong journey, not a destination. There will be setbacks and challenges along the way. The important thing is to keep striving, to keep practicing, to keep learning. Like Marcus, we can use our daily experiences as opportunities to cultivate wisdom, resilience, and compassion. We can transform the ordinary moments of our lives into exercises in virtue. We can become, in our own small way, philosopher-kings of our own inner citadels.
Legacy and enduring wisdom, a message across the ages. Imagine, if you will, a quiet room bathed in the soft glow of candlelight. The air is still, carrying whispers of forgotten empires and echoes of philosophical inquiry. Within this space, a solitary figure hunches over a scroll, his brow furrowed in concentration. He is Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, yet in this moment he is simply a man grappling with the universal questions of existence. He writes not for glory nor for posterity, but for himself, a private dialogue meant to anchor him amidst the storms of power and the fragility of life. Centuries have passed since those words were first etched onto parchment. Empires have risen and fallen. Yet the meditations of Marcus Aurelius endure, speaking to us across the vast expanse of time with an unwavering clarity and profound relevance. How did this personal journal of a Roman emperor, never intended for publication, become a timeless guide for living a virtuous and meaningful life? What is it about these reflections that continue to resonate with readers from all walks of life, regardless of their cultural background or historical context? Perhaps it is the sheer honesty and vulnerability that permeates the Meditations. Marcus does not present himself as a sage dispensing infallible wisdom. Instead, he reveals himself as a fellow traveler, wrestling with the same doubts, anxieties, and temptations that plague us all. He acknowledges his own imperfections, his struggles to live up to the Stoic ideals he espouses, and the constant need for self-correction. He reminds himself, as he reminds us, that it's silly to try to escape other people's faults. They are inescapable. Just try to escape your own.
This refreshing candor invites us to embrace our own imperfections and to focus on the one thing we truly have control over: our own character and actions. The enduring appeal of the Meditations also lies at its practical wisdom. Marcus does not dwell on abstract philosophical theories. Instead, he offers concrete strategies for navigating the challenges of daily life, for coping with adversity, and for cultivating inner peace. His emphasis on the three disciplines, perception, action, and will, provides a powerful framework for self-improvement. He urges us to, everywhere, at each moment, accept this event with humility, treat this person as he should be treated, approach this thought with care so that nothing irrational creeps in. These disciplines, simple yet profound, offer a pathway to greater clarity, purpose, and resilience. He tackles the fear of death head-on, a theme that runs throughout the Meditations. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think, he writes. He does not advocate for a morbid obsession with mortality, but rather a clear-eyed acceptance of its inevitability. By confronting our own mortality, we can learn to appreciate the preciousness of each moment and to live with greater intention and authenticity.
Another key element of Marcus's enduring wisdom is his emphasis on duty and the common good. He believed that human beings are inherently social creatures, and that our purpose in life is to contribute to the well-being of the larger community. He reminds us that each of us lives only now, this brief instant. The rest has been lived already or is impossible to see. Objective judgment, unselfish action, willing acceptance of all external events. As emperor, Marcus recognized the immense power he wielded, but he also understood that true leadership lies in serving others. The best revenge is not to be like that, he writes, urging us to respond to injustice not with anger or resentment, but with kindness and compassion. He sees the world as an ordered whole. All things are implicated in one another and in sympathy with each other. This event is the consequence of some other one. He encourages others to do the same. Ultimately, the Meditations offer a timeless message of hope and resilience. Marcus reminds us that even in the face of suffering, injustice, and the inevitable decline of all things, we have the power to cultivate inner tranquility and to live a life of purpose and meaning. He offers no easy answers, no magical solutions, but rather a set of principles and practices that can guide us on our own journey towards self-mastery and fulfillment. So, what is the legacy of Marcus Aurelius? It is not in his military victories, nor in the monuments he built, but in the words he left behind, words that continue to inspire and challenge us centuries later. He reminds us that even amidst the chaos and uncertainty of life, we can find solace and strength in the pursuit of virtue, reason, and the common good. To accept it without arrogance, to let it go with indifference, he said. His message is a beacon of light, illuminating the path toward a more authentic, meaningful, and fulfilling existence, a message that will continue to resonate across the ages.